The Michigan Man Podcast, episode 221. For the second year in a row, Michigan falls in East Lansing. This week is homecoming, and the struggling Indiana Hoosiers will be the opposition. That and more on this week's show.
Oh man, Euchre's been broadcasting for 27 years. I have never seen anything like this. They need 2 inches. Dennis Franklin, the quarterback, taking a long con from center. He hands off to Shuttlesworth 5, and it's down to the end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown, Dennis Franklin! Oh my God, Dennis Franklin fooled everybody. He fooled me. He fooled the entire Ohio State team. Kneeling is Larry Gustafson. Attempting will be Super Toe. Super Toe will kick the 30-yard field goal. It's good to send over there. It's a tied-up ball game. 10-10. Okay. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Carter hands up. Carter's down. Oh my God! Carter scored. Look at those Wolverines. 95 Wolverines going in the end zone. Carter's on the pad. In the air, it's done. Euchre is going out of his mind. I have never seen anything like this in all my 40 years of covering Michigan football.
This is the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. To say watching Saturday's game was frustrating and embarrassing is an understatement. Most of us have been wondering in the last few weeks if we've hit rock bottom yet. We still have 4 games left to play, so I'm not sure we've bottomed out yet, but it sure feels like it. On our Michigan Game Day segment, we'll rehash Saturday's nightmare with the football editor from the blog Maize N Brew, Joshua Henschke. We'll also look ahead to what's left of the season and talk about this weekend's matchup with Indiana. Before that, on our visitor segment, we'll hear from the longtime voice of Indiana football and basketball, Don Fischer. First, though, my view from Section 17. My key word this week is frustration. I was frustrated with the game plan we took 2 weeks to put together, and more than frustrated with the execution. I said last week I didn't think we could flip the switch on offense after 7 games. By this time of the season, it is what it is. What it is an offense that seems rudderless right now. The offensive line lacks cohesion. The running game is non-existent. Our receivers continue to drop too many passes, and Devin seems to have no confidence running the offense and continues to make poor decisions at critical times. And maybe that's understandable. He's been beaten to a pulp over the last 2 years. The defense, again, I thought played well into the third quarter. They were on the field too long, though, and eventually the missed tackles came, blown coverages, and then they just wore down. They didn't quit, they just had nothing more to give. Then there was the tent stake incident. We never heard a peep from Sean McDonough or Chris Spielman on the TV coverage. It wasn't until after the game and Coach D'Antonio brought it up at his presser that most of us learned what had even happened in the pregame. Yep, by now we've heard more than enough about Joe Bolden's ill-advised stake incident and Coach Hoke's subsequent apology to Coach D'Antonio, both privately and publicly. Frustrated. That's how Michigan fans feel about this off-the-tracks football season. There are still 4 games left on the schedule, and we have to win 3 of those to get bowl eligible. If you have some thoughts you would like to share on this season of frustration, I invite you to give our listener line a call at 313-263-4842. Tell us who you are, where you're calling from, and then go ahead and vent. That number again is 313-263-4842. We're open 24/7 for your calls. You can also email me at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. If there is a team in more dire straits than Michigan, It might be our opponent this week, the Indiana Hoosiers. Coming up next on our visitors segment is the legendary radio voice of IU football and basketball, Don Fischer. Here on the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. With us on our visitor segment this week, longtime Indiana radio play-by-play voice, Don Fischer. Don, great to have you back on the show.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Well, Don, most Big Ten teams have said this season their bye week came at a great time. For IU, that is very true, isn't it?
No question. This is a very interesting couple of weeks for Indiana football because they lost their starter quarterback, their backup quarterback in the same game at Iowa 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, and obviously without those two guys, they had to take the red shirt off of a true freshman in Xander Diamant, and the young man came in with about 4 days practice time to get ready for Michigan State, and the results were obvious. It was not a very good performance by Xander or by the offense in that contest against the Spartans. So this week came at an opportune, or this past week I should say, came at the opportune time. It gives Xander a lot more time to get familiar with the offense, a lot more time to get snaps under his belt, to work against or with the number one offensive unit, which he had not done virtually since the beginning of fall practice. So this was a very important week of off time for just about everybody except for the quarterback and the offensive side of the football.
Well, Don, one thing the Hoosiers do have going for them, even with all of those just critical injuries, is running back Tevin Coleman. Very special back, isn't he, Don? You haven't seen one come through those parts like him in a long time.
Well, he is. There's no question. He has been terrific this year. He's a guy that absolutely explodes. Once he gets an opening and he gets through it, he's gone. He's one of those guys that has the rare combination of power and speed. He's not he doesn't zigzag all over the place. He's pretty much a straightforward runner. He does have the good, powerful legs, but there's one thing that he is capable of doing. He can break a touchdown run on almost any play in a football game. We've seen him get tackled or at least hit, look like he couldn't come out the front end, and the next thing you know, he's sprinting down the field. So he's got the tools. He is a special back. As everybody knows, he's 6'1", about 210, and runs about 4'4", 5, something like that. He's just really special in that regard. So we'll see how that all plays out because he's going to have to be the key weapon for this ball club with Xander as quarterback. Because the one thing Diamant is, he's kind of a smaller guy. He doesn't see over the line very well. Certainly didn't in the Michigan State ball game in his first test. That was a very difficult day for him, and he's going to probably have to roll out to be able to see over the top of these big guys that are up in front of him to get vision out there and give himself a chance to be successful. So it's going to be interesting to see how Indiana plays this week in that regard because obviously the first week it did not go well for Xander Diamant in the passing game. They had 11 yards and totally he was 5 of 15 in the passing department.
Well, another weapon that Xander has at his disposal is wideout Shane Wynn, and anytime he gets the ball in his hands, there's a big play possibility too, isn't there, Don?
Well, he's very good. He's very quick. He has not had. I mean, he's a guy that can make a play just about any time he touches the football. What we haven't seen this year, or we've struggled with a little bit, is some drops from Shane, and that's rare. He hasn't been a guy that's done that very much, but he's had a couple of key drops in 2 or 3 ball games here in the last several weeks that have been kind of crucial. He had a drop in the ball game against Iowa for a touchdown in the end zone, and there was nobody around him. He just let it go right through his hands. So those issues, those kinds of mistakes out of seniors oftentimes are things that you can't overcome. And certainly in that Iowa ball game, it was one of those scenarios because, again, Sudfeld went out 2 plays later after he had dropped that football. Had he caught it, maybe Nate Sudfeld doesn't get hurt. We'd still have him as our quarterback. I guess you could look back at a lot of things. Hindsight's always 20/20 in that regard. But it is no question. It's disturbing in that sense, but Shane is a kid that can break a play.
Well, over on defense, Don, the D has really improved against the run this year. They're giving up 4.5 yards per carry, only 168 yards per game. The secondary, though, is giving up nearly 300 yards through the air per contest. Now that the situation is what it is on offense, the defense is really going to be stressed, aren't they?
Well, there's no question, and this is a better defensive unit. They tackle better. They're in better position to make plays. They still don't make as many plays as they need to make. There's still a question mark at a couple of spots, and the corners have had a lot of pressure on them because the defense has changed. The new defensive coordinator came in. He's made it more of a man coverage scenario for the corners with help from the safeties. But I'm telling you that the defensive backs have had a lot more pressure on them this year, and at times have stood up to it. But at other times they've been beaten, and primarily because the quarterbacks or the opposing quarterbacks have not had enough pressure put on them. This team still lacks the ability to rush the quarterback in a context of forcing the quarterback to make a throw maybe a little sooner than he would like. They do a better job of it than they did a year ago, but it's still not good enough in my opinion. And now it's going to have to be even better if, in fact, this offense is not going to be as effective, which we've got to assume it's not going to be without your 2 best quarterbacks on the field. So that does stress the defense. There's no question about it. That's where this team is really going to have to step up here in the last 5 weeks of the season. And we all know that last year's game with Michigan was one of those absolute shootouts in which Indiana, just couldn't keep up defensively against Michigan and couldn't put any pressure on Devin Gardner, and he went nuts on the day. He had all day to throw all day long. Well, when that happens, if that happens again, Indiana will have no more success this year than they did a year ago.
Well, Don, in September, things started out so well for IU, including that big win on the road at Missouri. Then the injuries started to mount. Looking at the schedule the rest of the way, it's tough to find a win in there, isn't it?
Well, there's no question if this team is going... the biggest problem this team is fighting right now, Mike, is mentally. You can't think that the season is over with if, in fact, you're going to win some ball games. And there's no question the schedule is very difficult, very tough. Michigan, of course, in the Big House this Saturday begins it. But if this team goes in there feeling that they're already beat, they will be, and they'll be beaten badly. And that's the one thing that Kevin Wilson is going to have to guard against and try to keep these kids as mentally sharp as he possibly can and not allow the naysayers to dictate how these kids feel about themselves, because this is a better football team than we've seen in Indiana since Kevin Wilson arrived. The fact of the matter is, however, they're dealing with the injury situation that couldn't have come at a worse position on the football field after Trey Roberson left in transferring a year ago. Likewise, Cam Kaufman transferred at the end of the football season. So the 2 other guys that had playing experience with this football program left because they didn't think they're going to get a chance to play. And, of course, now halfway through the season, they would have gotten an opportunity to be the starter for the rest of the year, but that doesn't happen. Now we got a true freshman in there who's taken very few snaps and was slated for a red shirt, probably shouldn't be playing because he's undersized at 6 foot and about 165.
We've seen a few coaches come and go through your many years covering the team, Don. Do you like the direction of the program under Coach Kevin Wilson?
Well, I don't think there's any question that this guy is a better recruiter than we've had. He's done a good job of upgrading the talent level of this football team. He is a tremendous offensive mind. There's no doubt about that. His abilities on the offensive side of the football are unquestioned. He's been successful with his offenses every place he goes. The defense is where the issues have been with this program. And it's been this way before Kevin Wilson got here. He has upgraded the talent level on that side of the football. It's still not good enough yet, but without question, he has made a real he's added to the defensive side of the football with the staff that he's hired and with the scheme that they're running and with the talent level that they have. Again, it's still not good enough yet, but it is better. And this team is capable of knocking people off if they don't take them seriously. But right now, under these circumstances, that's going to be a real question mark for the rest of the year.
Well, we know Michigan struggles this year, and last week many of the fans think it was rock bottom, or the program hit rock bottom against Michigan State. Big game for both teams for different reasons on Saturday, Don.
Well, there's little question about that. Both these teams are having their problems right now. I'd say Indiana's in a much more difficult situation than Michigan is, but that said, that mentality is the big factor. If Michigan goes out there with the right mentality, I don't think Indiana can beat them. If Indiana goes out there with the right mentality and Michigan doesn't come to play, then I think Indiana's got a chance. But right now, it doesn't look very good.
Well, it's another 3:30 p.m. kickoff at the Big House on Saturday, and it will be interesting. Our guest today on the Visitor segment has been longtime Indiana radio play-by-play voice Don Fischer. Thanks for joining us, Don, and we look forward to the next visit.
You bet, Mike.
Coming up next on our Michigan Game Day segment is the football editor of one of our very best Michigan blogs, Joshua Henschke from Maize N Brew. Here on the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. Joining us this week is the football editor at Maize N Brew, one of our very finest Michigan blogs, Joshua Henschke. Joshua, great to have you back on the show.
Thanks a lot for having me on.
Well, especially great to have you back knowing what we have to talk about today. Again, another very, very difficult game to watch on Saturday, a debacle in East Lansing. Did the end result surprise you in any way, Joshua?
Not really. There was a part of me that thought, hey, maybe, Michigan might be able to do a couple of things here and there, but, at the end result, it's not really shocking at all. I mean, Michigan wasn't able to do anything. I think the defense was, a little bit of a saving grace, even though they had their moments where they were, equally as bad. But, I expected Michigan State to handle Michigan fairly easily, and that's pretty much what we saw on Saturday.
Well, we had 2 weeks to put together a game plan for the Spartans, and if we were trying something different, I completely missed it. It was just mind-numbing as far as the game plan went to me, and again, it was just very frustrating to watch it, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the worst part of all of it is that, they had 2 weeks to game plan around this team. And, you could only muster 3 points for the majority of the game until, the waning minutes of the fourth quarter where you score a touchdown and the extra 2-point conversion. And, there was many points in that game where Devin Gardner completely missed, wide open receivers for what looked like easy touchdowns. So, the offense, I don't think the offensive game plan was horrible, but I think, as Brady Hoke likes to call it, the execution wasn't there. I know it's the big rallying point around what they need to do to get better, but the execution was awful. Almost everything was awful. You can't really say anything that hasn't been said about this game. It's just another game where, Michigan was outcoached and outclassed in all facets of the game.
When it comes to the game plan, with the 2 weeks, with the bye period, I thought we might see at least a few wrinkles in the offense, which again we didn't. This is basically the pro-style offense we've seen all year. I thought maybe Nussmeier would try to get Devin out of the pocket a bit more. But you know what? I didn't hear anything said about it, but maybe that high ankle sprain was still a factor in why he didn't get out of the pocket too much.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, he didn't look like he had any extra protection around the ankle, and he seemed to be moving fine when he was getting chased out of the pocket and when the pocket was regularly collapsing around him. But, I'm at the point where I'm thinking that, Nussmeier eventually has to say, you know what have we got to lose? Let's kind of lay it out on the line here and kind of, make some risky plays. I mean, you've got plays like the flea flicker that horribly just didn't work. But, I personally wouldn't mind seeing that happen, kind of getting to the point where, hey, let's try and pull our rabbit in the hat. They're a team that lacks a spark, and I think trick plays or going out of the norm as far as what their play calling is, they need to find a spark somewhere, and I'm not sure where they're going to find it, to be honest with you.
Well, Joshua, when you break down the offense, the line gets no push or not much. A little bit better in the last few weeks. Pass protection, I thought, has been pretty good at times. We don't have a running back who can make yards on their own. They need help. The receiving core still drops too many passes. And Devin's decision-making process, very poor, as we have seen and saw again Saturday. Did you ever think in your wildest imagination we would ever see a Michigan offense this bad?
No. I still expected, some playmakers. I thought Devin Funchess was going to have a great year. He's having a decent year, but he's still got a little case of the dropsies, so he needs to fix that. I think Michigan needs to get a lot of their wide receivers more involved in the offense. Darboh, Chesson. I think they need to get Jake Butt involved way more. I mean, he only had one reception and one target all game. That's really bad. I thought he could, definitely do some damage. I think he's been able to do damage all year. Granted that he's been coming back from the ACL. But I think he's perfectly healthy now, and he could definitely, make a difference. So there's a lot of things going wrong. A lot of people not getting involved, and losing Derek Green for the year certainly hurts. Again, it's just a team that just lacks a spark and lacks that that ability to attack defenses and go in for the kill when it needs to. It's awful. I never expected it to be this bad. I thought last year was bad, but this is just probably doubly worse.
Exactly. Last year at this time, we were watching the Al Borges offense, and at the end of the season, most fans said, he's got to go. Something's got to change. Then we bring in Doug Nussmeier from Alabama, who's had such a great and successful history, not just at Bama, but at other schools. This offense doesn't look any different than what we saw last year from Al Borges, and I'm not sure what exactly that tells us.
Yeah, I don't think we've really gone. We've seen too much of a variation. I think personally, Devin Gardner doesn't fit a pro-style offense. He needs to kind of escape from the pocket and be free to run around a little bit. I don't think he's fit for under center. But granted, I don't think that'll fix the offense. I think at times they're, way too conservative. I guess you can call that, Big Ten football, but I think, like we said before, they need to, go in for the kill and make some big plays. I mean, they're definitely lacking those chunk plays that you see all of these good teams make. It's just, when you look at all these other teams, other than Michigan play, you can just definitely see how far away Michigan is in order to, become competitive again, let alone just be a 500 football team. So there's definitely is a lot of room to grow, and I'm not sure, if they can do that at all, with this current staff.
Well, the defense, Joshua, did what it could to keep us in the game early, even forcing a fumble in the first half, which we haven't seen much of this year. But you knew the offense was struggling, and the D, if that kept up, was going to crack eventually. You just could feel it coming as we got into the second half. They could not keep it up, could they?
No, I mean, we've seen that so many times before this year. I think, the offense with so many quick 3-and-outs or drives that stall, so suddenly you've had to see the defense come in and, work their tails off just to, get another stop. And I think eventually it catches up to you like we saw in the second half. Granted, Michigan State's a really good team towards the end of the half and to start the second half when they saw we had a Jeremy Langford touchdown and the pick six and then that long play from Cook to Lippett in the third quarter. But there's a lot of things that that the defense did right and did well. And there's a lot of things that they did wrong, and all year, causing turnovers has been a problem. And granted that fumble was a little lucky on that play. Then with the recovery, I think they need to do a little bit more. Well, I should say the offense should probably do a little bit more, but granted. The defense is tired, and I don't blame them at all. I mean, they've been out there a lot, way too much, and it was the same thing last year. Again, nothing's really changed from the year before. We're seeing the same old thing on repeat, and it's tough. It's tough to watch, and from both perspectives, from a media perspective and a fan perspective, it's tough. And there's really no end in sight other than, the end of the football season, really.
Getting back to the offense for just a minute, Joshua, because, again, we just talked about the defense, and that is the least of our problems. They have played pretty darn well. But, after the game, I was checking out message boards on some of our Michigan blogs and some of the fan Facebook pages, which I like to do after the games just to see, where people are with their emotions. And the feeling I came away with this week, I think for the first time, is that we're at rock bottom now as a fan base and a football team. When you look at this offense, it's almost impossible to believe it can be fixed with 4 games left to be even partially effective.
No, I agree. I think, I've been wondering all season what's rock bottom. I've been thinking, it was rock bottom after Minnesota with the whole Shane Morris debacle. I've been thinking this is just pretty much the icing on the cake. I think this is absolute rock bottom, especially with that whole pregame spear thing that Brady Hoke had to apologize about today. I think that pretty much, that signifies rock bottom and how far Michigan's fallen as a program. It's that alone. I mean, I'm probably more embarrassed about the apology than I am about the actual, camping tent pole spear thing. This is, when you mentioned rock bottom, I think absolutely, and I really don't think there's any fixing this team. With 4 weeks left, I think at this point they'll be lucky enough just to reach bowl eligibility.
And that whole spearing thing with Joe Bolden, it wasn't until well after the game that I even heard about it. I mean, I watched it on television yesterday and didn't hear a one word about it during the telecast, but that's the kind of thing that is going to get a lot of a story this week. But you're right. Sunday night or Sunday afternoon at some point, Coach Hoke apologized. I wasn't clear in the story if he had apologized by phone or how he had done that to Coach D'Antonio, but that's not going to make a lot of people happy either.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I mean, if I don't know. I'm at the point where it's like nothing really surprises me anymore. I don't understand why he had to apologize for it. I mean, it was probably a mistake by Joel Bolden to bring it out, because that's from what I'm reading. Because I didn't know about it until after the game, just like everyone else, until Connor Cook and D'Antonio started talking about it. And from the statement, I don't think Bolden probably should have brought it out onto the field. I mean, it's really, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge deal. But considering everything that's happened this year, considering everything that Michigan's had to apologize or explain through public statements, it just that kind of just probably made it worse, the whole situation. And then, calling or however Hoke reached out to D'Antonio, one of your, big rivals, your in-state rival, it kind of just, it shows how, how far Michigan's fallen and how far ahead Michigan State is, because I think any other coach Any other time when Michigan was winning, I don't think this becomes a story, and I don't think, a coach would reach out and apologize for it. I don't see why it's such a huge deal, but granted, the team's struggling, and like I said, we've seen so many public apologies this season, it just kind of boiled over, I guess, if you want to call it.
Well, Coach D'Antonio in his presser didn't mince any words. He basically said, we popped the last score to put a stake in them. Of course, we all know what that reference was to now. Pretty clear. They could have taken a knee. They could have kicked a field goal. But that last score, it sounds like, was courtesy of the stake.
Yeah, and I don't think Michigan State should have ran up the score for that reason because of the stake. I think D'Antonio and his team are at a point where they don't need to find motivation to win this game. I think they're a good enough program locally and nationally to be motivated to win because they want to reach the playoffs because they're that close. And I think D'Antonio has every right to say what he wants about Michigan, but I don't think the stake was a big deal like that he was seeming making it out to be after the game. Both teams have 11 players. Michigan could have stopped them, and that's it. I think both sides kind of took it a little more than it should have been. But with this year, every non-story is going to be a story this year, especially with the fan base being upset as they are.
Our guest here on our Michigan Game Day segment this week is the football editor at Maize N Brew, one of our very best Michigan blogs, Joshua Henschke. Joshua, for the next 4 weeks, we're going to be hearing Brandon and Hoke have to go, change is coming, yada, yada, yada. The players don't live in a vacuum. There's social and electronic media they're tuned into, as well as traditional media resources. And we all know they'll play for pride and they will play hard. They've done it all year, but man, they are surrounded by a lot of negativity right now, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like you said, they're not not hearing this. They're definitely, I think personally, they're probably hearing it more than the coaches are. And that's not to say that Brady Hoke and coaching staff haven't heard the noise, but I think as a player, you're far more accessible, and they're definitely hearing it from all sides. So it's tough. This is not necessarily it's not the players' fault at all. They're the ones that are making the plays, and they're the ones that are working their tails off every week just to get that next W. And fortunately, it hasn't happened in a while. They've only had 3 this year, so they're working their butts off. There's no denying that. There's not a void of effort there from the players. It's just it's something that starts from the top, and if that needs to be changed, so be it. But this is definitely not a player problem. That's probably what I would classify it as.
Well, you're right, and change is going to be a key word here in the next month and a half, I think. And, most writers and analysts that I know thought even before Saturday's loss that Brady probably would not be back next year. Mm-hmm. Do you think Saturday's humiliation in East Lansing, and it was maybe, in the end, the final nail in the coffin?
I do. It reminds me a lot of 2002 when Lloyd Carr delivered that final nail into the Bobby Williams coffin. I think that certainly had the same type of feel heading after the game. I think that was it. I'm not sure how Brady Hoke can really redeem himself after that. Maybe, you would have to probably see Michigan beat Ohio State by a lot, and I personally don't see that happening at all. So I think that this is pretty much the end of the line here. I never like to advocate a coach being let go or fired, but at this point, there's really nothing you can do to avoid it. At this point, it's been mistake after mistake, blunder after blunder, and it's been like that all season. So I think, you got to make a change, and if that's the head coach, so be it. And if it's the athletic director as well, you got to do what you got to do. But it'll be an interesting couple weeks leading up to the end of the season, and including after the season as well, to see what happens.
Well, and there'll be time for all of us to talk about that a lot coming up after the season. Right now, though, Saturday, Indiana visits the Big House. This should be a team Michigan can beat when you look at all of their issues. They come in with one of the nation's best running backs in Tevin Coleman, and he is special. But they're going to have a freshman at quarterback. Their defense hasn't been good all year. Even with the current struggles, though, it's hard to imagine Michigan not being able to take down these guys.
Yeah, I think, if you had Nate Sudfeld in there, I think it'd be a completely different story. I think, this game might be a lot closer than some think. But with him out for the season, you've got true freshman Xander Diamant starting. I don't see a way that, Michigan can lose this game. I think they don't have to win by a lot. I think they just can do enough on the offense to beat them. You get it, and plus, like you said, you got to shut down Tevin Coleman. I mean, he's fantastic, one of the best, running backs arguably in the nation. Not sure if he'll even be around next year, considering he's contemplating the NFL draft, and I honestly don't blame him. But it'll be an interesting game just to see, because honestly, we're talking about kind of a level playing field as far as where both teams are at. Michigan only has one Big Ten win. Indiana doesn't have any. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I don't think Michigan is going to blow them out. I'm seeing the spread is about anywhere between 8 to 10 points. I think Michigan can probably win around by maybe 10 to 13. That would be probably a safe enough score. I don't think, if Nussmeier wants to call the game of his life against Indiana, go right ahead. But the quarterback situation for Michigan seems to be kind of up in the air right now, because it kind of sounded like that Hoke was kind of considering a change, even though he said that it's Devin Gardner's for now. They said they wanted to talk about it tomorrow. So I don't know if that's going to change, but it'll be interesting to see what happens, because like we saw against Minnesota, Shane Morris kind of struggled a little bit, so this might be a game, if Shane Morris were to start, it'd be a game where he might be able to, get his footing underneath him and kind of, do a little bit more than he has been.
Michigan has to win 3 of the last 4 games to get bowl eligible. After watching Saturday night, I think for a lot of us that seems unimaginable right now. I mean, Devin has had his struggles, and he's done so much for the program, but as you just mentioned, there might be a change coming up next week. And, why not? Let Shane Morris play. There's nothing to lose at this point.
No, absolutely not. It's just a shame, like you said. I love Devin Gardner personally. I think he's a great human. He is a great. I want to say he is a good player. When he's put in the right situation, he's a good player. He's talented, and he's the type of guy that you want representing your program and representing your university. He's brought nothing but good attention to the university, and he's done everything that you want as a player. And it's unfortunate to see his career end this way, because he's done so much for the program. He's come early from high school for early enrollee. Switched to wide receiver. Went back to quarterback, been benched his senior year, and then thrown back into the game. He's been through a lot, and it's a shame to see his career end this way. But at this point, you have to make a move. And if Shane Morris is truly the future, you may as well get him the experience now and hope for the best.
Well, I think a lot of Michigan fans feel that way, really have enjoyed Devin Gardner, what he's given to this program, all of the things that he does off the field. I think a lot of fans don't even know what some of those things are. He's been a great student, and I think that's what makes it very hard even for me, thinking that I know he's not getting it done, but he's given so much that you would like to see him succeed. But if it's not going to happen, you have 4 games left. Let's get Shane in there. So we'll see what happens this week. It's going to be an interesting week. Our guest here on the show has been the football editor at Maize N Brew, one of our very best Michigan blogs. I will have the link up on my show notes page. Joshua Henschke, There's going to be, as we know, a lot to talk about in the coming weeks and months, so thank you for your time, and we will be sure to get you back on soon.
Not a problem. Anytime. Thanks a lot for having me on.
Coming up next on Wolverine Quick Hits, an injury update, and some quick game day facts about this weekend's opponent, the Indiana Hoosiers, on the Michigan Man podcast, here on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. On Wolverine Quick Hits, no serious injuries heading into this week's game. At Monday's presser, Brady said quite a few players are dinged up, which we expect at this time of the year, but all in all, the team is in good shape. Still no Jabril Peppers, though, and no word on whether he will play again this year. Here are some game day facts about this week's game and opponent, the Indiana Hoosiers. Michigan has a record of 53-9 against IU. The first meeting was on November 3rd of 1900 in Ann Arbor, with Michigan posting a 12-0 win. Last year in the Big House, defense was non-existent. Michigan won a 63-47 shootout. IU coach Kevin Wilson is now in his fourth year as head man. His record is 10-26. The Hoosiers run a spread, multiple set offense, and a multiple front defense. IU finished the 2013 campaign with a record of 5-7, 3-5 in the Big Ten. They returned 18 starters this year, that is until injuries took hold, 8 on offense, 9 on D, and 1 specialist. 2007 was the last time IU made a bowl appearance. They played Oklahoma State in the Insight Bowl and fell 49-33. Their last Big Ten championship was in 1967. We all need a time and a place to vent. Membership here at GBM Wolverine gives you the perfect place to voice your frustrations with other Michigan fans. Visit www.gbmwolverine.com and sign up for free membership today. It's been a downer of a season, and you're not the only Wolverine fan bummed out right now. If you need to commiserate with fellow Wolverines, take a minute. Visit www.gbmwolverine.com today and become a member. You'll find plenty of company to share your Maize N Brew frustration with. Thanks again to my guest today, legendary and longtime Hoosier radio voice Don Fischer, and the football editor at one of our very best Michigan blogs, Joshua Henschke from Maize N Brew. The rest of this week we'll have to read and listen to the fallout from last Saturday's debacle in East Lansing, and I think we'll all be glad when that stops. This weekend is homecoming, and the game features two teams that are reeling. IU is one banged-up team and comes into town with an 18-year-old quarterback making only his second career start. And we're all aware, of course, of our own woes. This should be a game Michigan wins, we think. We'll find out at 3:30 p.m. this Saturday. Next week, we'll be back to recap homecoming and get ready for another game under the lights. This time it's on the road to Evanston and a matchup with struggling Northwestern. So I hope you'll join me for next week's show. That's it for this week. As I said at the top of the show, frustration is my key word this week. Let's hope we can work some of that frustration out with a homecoming win over IU. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. Until next week, take care, and as always, Go Blue. Thanks for listening to the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. You can find us on the web at www.gbmwolverine.com. That's www.gbmwolverine.com. For audio posts or other fan feedback, please call our listener line at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Email fan feedback to the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan. The Michigan Man podcast is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!